This program is brought to you by the Brennan School of Business at Dominican University, along with Professor Zack. I hope you enjoy.
And so when it comes to leadership in an international context, that's contention. So the approach we take is a contingent. So pretty much it depends. What does it depend on? You guys named some things like resources, employees, what's another name for employees? Labor. Staff. How about, well, from a managerial perspective, top tier, managing facilities, corporations, etc. It's kind of hard to say, but it really is its human capital. And that's why it's so very easy for companies to, cut 14, 12, 10,000 people. Because people at this decision, when we say labor and staff, I think that's more of a downward management. So, low level management. These people are just pretty much numbers. And that's really how they have to be viewed in that context. What were some of the other things we said were contingent? Things like motivation. How about we throw in what we learned last week, which is politics. Technology. Legal. Actually, there is a model that kind of describes this. I just wanted to write it down a little bit better. We'll call this the Zack model. That's what it was. You guys ever seen this? I think he's making it.
He's like the secret digger with an expo.
What's that?
He's like that secret digger with an expo magnet. You'll reduce it then.
Are you putting the transparent?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So we start from the outside in. So if you're working as an international manager of operations in Europe, what is the first thing you need to evaluate your skills? You say, I want to start a business in Europe. Politics? Actually, how about this environment?
Do you mean like legal environment?
Yeah, but I mean, politics. Yeah, I mean that. Yep. Yeah, think big.
Well, say there's sophisticated clients, you need to update like a full whatever product you can sell.
Okay. I think that would go more, okay, so think in terms of this. You have three facets, which is the global. You have to look at that before you look at the regional. You look at the regional, which would be the country you're going to work in. And then you'll look at the local, which is actually your company and how you structure it. So from here, on a global scale, we're going to look at, let's just say, trends in Europe. Is this one up? Where is that sit? Or barely? And here, you think of regional, the country that you'd be working in, politics, right? Like you said, socioeconomic. Yeah. You know, find a better way to do this. Global, you're going to look at competition globally. Regional, you're going to look at tech. What's the technology like in the country? How's the infrastructure for it? And from here, you're going to just observe the country to say it's interdependent. Basically, how restricted is this company relative to this? What are some of the things you'll look at in your operating environment as you're operating the company? What's an impact?
Resources.
Resources. What about the ethics? Maybe the culture. Actually, the culture overlaps because it comes here too. The country has a culture. I wouldn't say that the world has a culture. It's very. And CSR is always.
Yeah, I figured out.
Yeah, so that's an overview of kind of what I wrote in this stuff. We see it's like, corporate social responsibility, yeah, which is huge and I like to bring ethics into ethics is everything we do. So in looking at some of the environments that exist around the world, we see that people are starting to create alliances. Countries are starting to create alliances. What would be the reason that countries would want to create alliances amongst each other?
They could, have like cheaper trade with one another.
Well,
Like that would advantage.
so to create some sort of dominance so that they would reap the rewards of working with other countries.
Or only when one country can do something about it. Well, I guess not.
Maybe a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. Yes, sir.
War, yeah. Like alliance with Russia, maybe we're gonna win.
So, this war,
I
think that affects
business. Don't you think war affects business?
do you want to know that thing?
Guns, weapons.
Make your men and sisters line.
To create like support independency. So
Yeah.
like if you're struggling economically, you're like, people you're aligned with will want to help you because they benefit from your goods and services as well.
Mm-hmm. Anyone? How about jobs? You create more jobs for people in your country. About increase your GDP. You open up your borders, open up your trade, now you're allowing for an entire, international global market to buy things that you have, resources. Can we identify any alliances that we see around the world today that exist? No. Does everyone know what NAFTA is?
Yes.
Anybody don't know what NAFTA is? Do we know the countries involved in NAFTA?
Like US, Canada, and Mexico.
NAFTA is huge. It's made a lot of impact. I think particularly on probably more so for like Mexico and Canada than the United States. Now we have General Motors, have a huge facility down there. Walmart has several distribution centers down there. So it's really increasing the economic environment in Mexico. Mexico is becoming more wealthy as time goes on. Canada is becoming very wealthy, now that they have 30 million people. I think Canada is the second largest country on earth. They only have 30 million people. Any other?
Is that capital one?
Capital? Yeah. So that's like Guatemala, Belize, Ecuador, Panama. What other alliances that we aware of? The EU, the European Union. What does happen with that? Very, very, exit. Very, very well, the European Union. And that's going to shake up a lot of things for a lot of investors, our economy. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm not really sure. Have you ever heard of the AU? The acronym? So where the EU is around 27 countries. The EU is about 53. This one probably, right now as we speak, is the most important one because it's open season. It's 53 countries in Africa. As we saw, Facebook is trying to launch a satellite, which blew up. They're working with Elon Musk, what's the name of that company? Tesla? SpaceX. Elon Musk. So you can do some rockets that work for NASA and stuff. This one is probably the most lucrative one right now as we speak. The Chinese are building up infrastructure everywhere. And you can go to places like Nigeria, Kenya, and you will see a lot of foreigners. You'll be very surprised. Because their governments are very lax. They're trying to raise their, economies. And now that the borders have opened up with things like the AU, a lot of people see a lot of opportunities to come there and start businesses. There's a lot of money to be made there. So Africa is not the same continent in our heads that we think it is, where it's just savannas and wilderness and forest. Africa is changing. Are you guys familiar with, you already took international business, the BRIC nations?
I'm looking all that out of the review and China.
Yeah. India. So birthdays, here's what it was, that would be it. So what makes these so, what makes these places so important to operate with this? Can't pick anyone with the one there.
For Calcium is emerging markets, a lot of potential for investors.
Why do you think they're emerging? What's so unique?
Cheap labor.
Okay. Sure. China's getting more expensive. I don't know how long that iPhone's going to be moving. But okay, let's say cheap labor. In general sense, I mean, these are not, these are still very well developed countries.
Low income.
You said middle class?
Low income.
Middle income? All right, how about I just come from Brazil? Is there anything you think about Brazil?
This is also the fact that they all have kind of like a coastline, so it makes it easier to import and export stuff.
Yeah, let's support it. Those geography, right? What's the language they speak in Brazil?
Portuguese.
What's that?
Portuguese.
And what else?
I know one Portuguese.
No, Portuguese is the main language, but Spanish is used there too. We're talking, maybe the fact that's the largest country in South America. If you look at this, you think, well, how many other countries around the world speak Spanish? And how do we utilize them? In Africa, for example, I mean, there's French probably has like 25 countries that French is the predominant language. There's a few countries that Spanish speaking is predominant. But pretty much this is your gateway into Latin America. What about India? Anything unique about India?
Population.
Which is
Like what, 2 billion?
China. What's the population of China? And this goes back into what we talked about earlier. People just need sheer human capital. If you need to make 150 million iPhones in 6 months, you're not going to do it in Ecuador. You're not going to do it in Nigeria. You're being China. Well, predominantly China, because they're like manufacturing. So the most important thing about China is manufacturing. India information technology. Russia, on the other hand, is Russia is the largest country on earth. And also one of the most educated. Roughly about 150 million. A lot more before they broke up the USSR. So that's really just a snapshot of the main markets we'll be focusing on: the EU, the AU, the BRIC countries. So actually, the book talks about China specifically. It gives kind of a synopsis on how to do business in China. I guess you kind of like 10 key elements of what would be important to do business with China. I could write some of those down, but I'm just thinking, since we're all such a diverse group, what are some important factors? So we got some people who went out of the country all the time, right? Okay. And you guys, student visa, right? Who else went out of the country this summer? Spain, Morocco, Guatemala, Cameroon.
I say right in London last semester, the few semesters ago.
Where?
London.
Oh, London. And has anybody else lived in another country for a long time? In Mexico? What part? Durango, Michoacán, Tamaulipas? Guerrero and South. All right, so let's just say important facts doing business. What you observed when you went to this country, what do you think are some important factors in order to do business in this country? Who wants to start? Let's get it done.
So like when summer went to Spain, study abroad, and one of the things that we didn't know is that the people in the train were on strike. They don't have any sort of like communication through like phone. If it's terrible online, it's terrible visible in person. And even then, we didn't really know someone to directly help people have the problems. So we had to train that to very supply at home. But they were on strike, so we didn't know our trains and we were trained and we on, but they didn't tell us anything. So the fact is to go in person and like sit out at the train station, try to figure out what was going on. And it's like we tried calling, we tried figuring it out, and there was no sort of communication as to the face-to-face.
So it had to be facing.
Yeah.
Any other like an electronic meeting or something? Okay. So Spain. Face to face.
So we talk about Spain.
No, just tell me about what did you observe? What were some of your observations?
We were in Ireland, so. I think they're very, they're very like environmentally. Yeah, I thought there was some like really, like that about it. They're very friendly. And I appreciate like the conversation. Yeah, there's no real like time. Yeah.
Okay, so relax. maybe non-aggressive, like in your business approach, you know.
Yeah.
You do it casual, you wouldn't do it like you're trying to sell something.
Yeah, it's like super. They're very hospitable.
You guys, what about in reality? What is important in order to do business? What's an important thing? Hmm? What's that? Oh, resources. Okay. I'm getting that. So resources. What do you mean? Like money? Is it hard to get people to give you for businesses? So you have a good idea and you have a good strategy, they might give you money for operations. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's something like this, like already, like they really like, the things that people need, like, if you do a business, to provide services or products that people need, that would be good, but people really like new stuff, so like, if you like open a sushi restaurant, for example, or something, really be giving people who really never ate sushi before.
Okay. So they like new things. What we didn't talk about, what we skipped over was Middle East. Like, what are the major countries doing business in the Middle East? Like what?
Oh,
Qatar, UAE,
Absolutely.
Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
and Kuwait.
Yeah, I think we do too.
Anybody else want to put someplace there in business? I think it's important.
So in my mom, we don't technically have a lot of department one, like stores that people actually go in and buy. So
Where?
in Guatemala.
Bottom
So unless you live in the capital, you're probably not gonna find a mall. The closest mall to where we're from is like half an hour away, and that's still the longest I've ever. But what they do is they do a lot of Instagram selling. So they create their accounts through Instagram and Facebook, and that's how they sell all their products. Whether it's like a catalog or it's like actual clothes that they'll buy from someone and then they'll resell them.
So is it like infrastructure is the problem or transportation? Like, do they not have the roads, or is it too many hills and mountains? They don't have proper roads?
I think it's a little bit of both. Not a lot of people have credit cards either. So when you buy something from someone online, what you do is you go and you direct deposit something from your bank. So they'll give your account number out. But it's not really, the road has a lot to do with it, but no one has like an specific address either. So I guess it's a little bit more hectic that way.
Anybody else want to add anything?
In Morocco, they're very like aggressive, but you also have to do a lot of bargaining, like back and forth.
You said Morocco?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's aggressive, but it's a lot of bargaining.
I like art and artists.
That's how it is too.
What's that?
That's how it is too.
Really?
They're like very, it's not aggressive, people are very like,
Open for negotiation?
yeah.
Everything. Anybody else want to add? Any places there?
Just some, like, one specifically, not all written, but, they're just really, concerned about quality over anything, so they're willing to pay a little more as long as it's local, like, as far as food, like, everything there, it's like not GMO, local, high quality stuff.
So they care about getting the best.
Yeah,
And not cheap on that, the best about it.
yeah, they just care about the quality of the product.
Is it because things are built locally or because,
They have a lot of like local farms and it's a very like green, country in particular, but, yeah, I think it's just the culture too, like they kind of just, they want to have nice things.
and they would be, evaluated for the town?
Yeah, and now it's less than $1.
They'll be that. It'll always be the town.
I just add it.
Yeah,
As well.
Mhm.
I think they're very into like family-run businesses, like there's a lot of, weight put into, like, this is what my family did, so that's what I'm gonna do. Type of people, like, we need the shop owners and things like that, it's, well, how long have you been doing this? It's like, well, my grandpa did it, my dad did it, so how are you doing it, type of thing.
The last names.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Everything's in last name.
Oh,
My, my dad, he's from Sicily, he was from Sheffield, Sicily. And I still got like crazy, great grandparents there. But everything here is last name, even the towns are all last name, people who live in town are all named after the town. So you always find Corleone, there's a lot of people named Corleone, and New York. The Godfather of the largest mafia too, the largest postal office, Corleone, in Sicily.
absolutely.
So even they have a brand. So, criminal organizations, we won't get into those over there, but even they have brands. All right, so looking at all of these different variables from all these different places, we have to try to formulate what it is we need to know in order to be successful and thrive. I was going to talk very briefly about kind of personal things. So think of it like this. Let's take a good job. Like, what is your motivation in your job? Is it to move up the corporate ladder? Is it just purely money? Is it something else? Where the most part is money?
To be honest, yeah.
Do you, for the people who work, do you feel like you make enough money? No? I don't know.
I have to feel some sort of like, respect for myself and my work. Like right now, I don't really, I'm butchered, so I don't really like, I don't like telling people anything, I feel it's very like savage. But I honestly.
You mean your job description?
Yeah. So, that's why I aspire to have a job where I don't feel it's dirty.
I can see that. I think the budget is very, we all eat. It has to start from somewhere, And I think it was a really great profession a long time ago. Now there's just so many different things, like people really look to technology. If you work in digital marketing or something, that's what people kind of do. But old school things like a butcher, a bus driver, those things, people kind of like look down on now, because they're basically manuals using your hands, and people think like, okay, I'm using computers. Even lawyers are kind of like, not a great profession. Versus the non-student law judge. Some of those guys I know, it's like public defenders, that make like $25,000, $30,000. You better take out 200, 250. So that's not how it's cracked up. So let's say the amount of money we hope to make more, but for some reason it's like that over time. What are some of the factors that make us not get ahead at our job? So
You don't enjoy it. You're not motivated to work hard.
all right, enjoy. I mean, no, we won't have to discuss kind of the general precepts of how we feel personally. Let's just say, let's keep that in mind. This is what keeps us down, which is directly related to cost of living. This can go up, but as inflation grows a little bit, the cost of living, we don't change. We just keep the same apartment, same we live paycheck to paycheck. We're 2 paychecks away from not having to do it. So the same thing should be looked at from a managerial point of view. How do you combat these forces? You're out of a job if you don't make money. So what are some of the things we could throw in here to make us not increase our bottom line over time as a manager?
For football performance.
Think getting larger, think low.
I was thinking like cost management and reducing your costs.
I would say increase the cost. What do you need to overcome? What are some of the forces?
Well, there's competition from other people and you need to be able to grow your market share, so you might have to broaden your reach.
I guess we could go out and do it. Let's say tariffs. Say regulations. The natural resources. Probably one of the biggest things is changing technology. That one's huge because if you don't put in enough money for your technology to change over time, you essentially will be behind, especially if you are working in like IT, where you're dealing with heavy tech supported services. Most of your money is going to go in there. If you're not doing what you got to do to replace that stuff, you are going to fail. I was going to get into the other 2 forces of cultural dimensions that we started on the first day of class, but I don't think we have enough time. I will show a short video on TikTok, short one film leadership. And then I know in our syllabus, we talk about global updates on the syllabus. So that one just come, next class, just come with something that's going on in the world and share it with the class. And we can discuss it. Without have our own thing. And then we'll have Benjamin here for like the last half hour of class. Okay, does anybody ever have problems like embedding videos into the PowerPoint? Never did show up. We'll just watch like the first 5 minutes.
Let's suppose that you're rolling a really important email to a colleague.
Let's talk about network processes.
I want to introduce you to an amazing woman. Her name is Davinia. Davinia was born in Jamaica, emigrated to the US at the age of 18, and now lives just outside of Washington, D.C. She's not a high-powered political staffer, nor a lobbyist. She'd probably tell you she's quite unremarkable, but she's having the most remarkable impact. What's incredible about Davinia is that she's willing to spend time every single week focused on people who are not her. People not in her neighborhood, her state, nor even in her country. People she'd likely never meet. Davinia's impact started a few years ago when she reached out to all of her friends on Facebook and asked them to donate their pennies so she could fund girls' education. She wasn't expecting a huge response, but 700,000 pennies later, she's now sent over 120 girls to school. When we spoke last week, she told me she's become a little infamous at the local bank every time she rocks up with a shopping cart full of pennies. Now, Davinia is not alone. Far from it. She's part of a growing movement, and there's a name for people like Davinia: global citizens. A global citizen is someone who self-identifies first and foremost not as a member of a state, a tribe, or a nation, but as a member of the human race, and someone who's prepared to, thank you, and someone who's prepared to act on that belief to tackle our world's greatest challenges. Our work is focused on finding, supporting, and activating global citizens. They exist in every country and among every demographic. I want to make the case to you today that the world's future depends on global citizens. I'm convinced that if we had more global citizens active in our world, then every single one of the major challenges we face, from poverty, climate change, gender inequality, these issues become solvable. They are ultimately global issues, and they can ultimately only be solved by global citizens demanding global solutions from their leaders. Now, some people's immediate reaction to this idea is that either it's a bit utopian or even threatening. So I'd like to share with you a little of my story today, how I ended up here, how it connects with Davinia, and hopefully with you. Growing up in Melbourne, Australia, I was one of those seriously irritating little kids that never ever stopped asking why. You might have been one yourself. I used to ask my mum the most annoying questions. I'd ask her questions like, Mum, why can't I dress up and play with puppets all day? Why do you want fries with that? What is a shrimp? And why do we have to keep throwing them on the Barbie? And Mum, this haircut? Why? The worst haircut. Still terrible. As a white kid, I thought I could change the world, and it was impossible to convince me otherwise. And when I was 12 and in my first year of high school, I started raising money for communities in the developing world. And we were a really enthusiastic group of kids, and we raised more money than any other school in Australia. And so I was awarded the chance to go to the Philippines to learn more. It was 1998. We were taken into a slum in the outskirts of Manila. It was there I became friends with Sonny Boy, who lived on what was literally a pile of steaming garbage. Smoky Mountain was what they called it, but don't let the romance of that name fool you, because it was nothing more than a rancid landfill that kids like Sonny Boy spent hours rummaging through every single day to find something, anything of value. That night with Sonny Boy and his family changed my life forever, because when it came time to go to sleep, we simply lay down on this concrete slab the size of half of my bedroom with myself, Sonny Boy.